And right now, it's time for your reality check. Many of farmers who helped propel President Trump to the presidency now fear becoming a pawn in his escalated trade war with China. Yes, indeed, America, it is true. Markets for soybeans, corn, and lifeblood crops in the upper Midwest have been seriously threatened over the past months as President Trump has talked loosely of tariffs and trade wars. When China threatened a 25% tariff on soybeans, farmers of crops like Mike Petfish in Minnesota feared the worst. According to Petfish, farmers struggled to break even last year, and this year looks even worse, even before the tariffs. Are President Trump supporters beginning to turn on him right before the midterm elections? Or are they going to stick with the president all the way? That is the big question, America. That is the question on the mind of every pollster, every prognosticator, and every political pundit. But here at the Fowler Show, we seem to have your answer. And the answer isn't connected to political party. The answer isn't connected to anything else besides profit. These farmers are nervous. These farmers are worried. These farmers are concerned. Why, America? Because all that matters to them is making sure that their farm yields go to market. And the president has put those farm yields in jeopardy. Yes, indeed, America, it is true. And I would be remiss if I don't talk about my own particular stance on trade, because I took flack from many in the media, both on my side of the aisle and on the other side, for defending the president's particular stand on steel and aluminum. And let me tell you why I did it before I talk about the pending trade war with China. For decades, steel and aluminum workers in this country have been being hit over the head. Not only in the United States, but all across Europe and the developed world. Steel workers have been hit over the head, day after day, month after month, year after year. These workers have suffered. Not at the hands of political parties, not at the hands of bad governors, not even at the hands of bad corporate actors. They've suffered because of a bad government. And to be frank, it's not even the United States government. They've suffered at the hands of a communist government in China. In China, China has dumped steel. And we here at the Fowler Show have never shied away from talking about the fact that China's steel dumping has had adverse impacts all across the globe when it comes to the global price of steel. They have dragged down the price of steel, unbelievably, to the point where thousands, hundreds of thousands of steel and aluminum workers, both in Europe and in the United States, have felt the pain from China's unfairness. And while I don't agree with the president on much, when he became one of the first presidents to stand up for these workers, I might have been in a lonely crowd, but I applauded. Why? Because these workers deserved a champion. These workers deserved a president in the White House to stand up for them and have their backs. But now, President Trump has gone a little bit too far. There was no question that China was going to retaliate when we issued our tariff on steel and aluminum. We almost knew that it was coming. And we should have prepared for it, America, because we knew that it was coming. And preparing for it doesn't mean going to Twitter and typing out 240 characters, as you see here if you're watching this on YouTube, that the president did, saying that President Xi and I will always be friends, but no matter what happens with our disputes on trade, China will take down its trade barriers because it's the right thing to do. Taxes will become reciprocal and a deal will be made on intellectual property. Great futures for both countries. This type of bait and switch politics and this type of bait and switch international trade dealing on Twitter is not how you get things done, Mr. President. So while I applauded you on the steel and aluminum tariffs, acting like a child, being a bully, and playing fifth grade politics doesn't really work, especially when you're talking about the livelihood of people like Michael Petfish, who depends upon his family farm to make sure not only that ends meet for his family, but there's generational wealth for years and years to come. So, Mr. President, you have now put America in waters that are choppy, waters that we might not be able to navigate out of, and waters that can put our country in peril. It's interesting, America, that last year this time, President Trump was boasting, raving, and ranting about how great the stock market was doing. Because today, if you were to ask the president about the stock market, he would be as quiet as a church mouse. You know why? Because thanks to his ranting and raving on Twitter, the stock market has taken a nosedive so deep that if you were on a plane, you would probably pass out and the oxygen mask would descend from above. Why, America? Because Wall Street doesn't like uncertainty. And this president waking up at 6 a.m. in the morning and engaging with his sticky Twitter fingers in a battle with President Xi is not how we get things done. Remember, China is the second largest economy in the world. And whether we like it or not, China is our #1 trading partner. And it goes both ways. Because while we get cheap products from China, China is a critical market for our farmers. So critical that a small tariff from China can shut down entire counties in Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Indiana, and Missouri. Mr. President, I have no problem with you standing up for the American worker. And when you say the mantra about fair trade, not just free trade, I applaud you. But this ideal of playing fast and loose on Twitter when it comes to dealing with China is not how we get things done. This ideal of you tweeting and then your your chief economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, and your Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, going out and saying the opposite is not how you get things done. This whole ideal of, oh, he talks tough and he carries a big stick is not how we do trade deals. The White House, America, since its inception, has been a house of pride, has been a house of dignity, has been a house of respect. The White House has literally been, if America is a city on a hill, the White House has been a house on a hill that the world has looked up to for centuries. And I swear to you, every month and every day that this man sits in that White House, that hill gets a little bit smaller. The world looks at that hill a little bit more myopically, excuse me. And here's the reason why. Because while it's okay to stand up for these workers, and while it's okay to talk tough with China, it's an about damn time somebody did. You've got to also have some order and distinction to it. And that means not negotiating with China on Twitter. If you notice, America, China's not negotiating back with us on Twitter. They're negotiating in action. They're just opening up tariffs left and right. And we're on Twitter saying one thing, on the news saying something else. That's not how you get stuff done. And the market knows it, which is why the market's reacting the way the market's reacting. Which is why farmers like Pete Fish is annoyed, concerned, nervous, scared. Call it what you will. America, Mr. President, I doubt you're watching this, but if you are, the American workers deserve better.